It started with a storm. A violent one, the kind that rolled through the Midwest with sheets of rain and lightning that split the sky in half. It was the night everything in the small town of Brier Hollow changed. When the storm finally cleared the next morning, a road crew was out checking for fallen trees. One of them, a man named Jack Holloway, spotted something strange down an overgrown driveway off County Road 6, a rusted mailbox, the numbers barely visible, 1127. Jack said later he'd lived in Brier Hollow all his life, but he'd never noticed that house before. The driveway was swallowed by vines and weeds. It looked like no one had been down there in decades. But something about that mailbox stuck with him. During lunch, curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed a flashlight and followed the path. The house sat a quarter-mile in, a two-story farmhouse collapsing in on itself. The windows were shattered, the porch half-rotted, the roof caved at the center. The paint had peeled away long ago, leaving nothing but gray wood and silence. Jack said it felt wrong. Not just abandoned, forgotten on purpose. Inside, the air was thick with mildew. The floorboards groaned under his boots. Furniture still stood where someone had left it, a kitchen table with 3 chairs, a pot still on the stove, a coat hanging by the door. It looked like whoever lived there had walked out mid-sentence and never returned. Jack was about to leave when he noticed something strange, a trail of dark stains across the floor, leading down a narrow hallway. He followed it to a door bolted shut from the outside. That's when he decided to call the sheriff. Deputy Marla Kent arrived first. She'd been with the Brier Hollow Sheriff's Department for 10 years, used to petty thefts and noise complaints, not scenes like this. When she unlatched the bolt and pushed open that door, her flashlight cut through the dark. Stairs led down to a small basement lined with shelves of jars, newspapers, and broken tools. In the corner sat an old metal trunk. Inside were bones. At first, no one was sure if they were human. But when the county coroner examined them the next morning, it became clear, the remains belonged to a woman in her 30s. Judging by the state of decomposition, she'd been there for nearly 50 years. That's when the old house at 1127 County Road 6 went from curiosity to crime scene. No one could remember who'd lived there last. Some said a couple named the Marshalls, Thomas, Evelyn, and their young daughter, Grace. Others thought it had been empty even longer. Property records confirmed the Marshalls bought the house in 1968. But after 1975, there was nothing, no sale, no forwarding address. Just silence. Neighbors described them as quiet. Thomas worked at a lumber yard. Evelyn sold preserves at the farmer's market. Grace was maybe 7. And then, one day, they were gone. No one reported them missing. People just assumed they'd moved away when the lumber yard shut down. But the bones in the basement told a different story. A single gold ring found with the remains bore the initials E.M., Evelyn Marshall. Detectives began combing the property. In the attic, they found a water-stained box filled with letters, receipts, and a faded photograph, Thomas, Evelyn, and Grace smiling in front of the same farmhouse. Behind the house, buried under layers of leaves, they found another trunk, this one holding a child's shoe, a cracked porcelain doll, and a half-destroyed photo album. No sign of Thomas or Grace. For weeks, the investigation went nowhere. Until a man named Roy Bennett came forward. He'd been a teenager back in the 70s, delivering groceries to the Marshalls. When he saw the story on the news, he remembered Thomas, said he was a man who looked like he had too much on his mind. Roy recalled that Thomas started buying more whiskey than food, and that Evelyn often had bruises she tried to hide. He also remembered one night, late summer, 1975, hearing screams from that direction. When he told his father, the old man just said, "You didn't hear nothin', son. That family's got their own troubles." After that, the Marshalls vanished. Investigators returned to the basement. Beneath the trunk, they noticed drag marks in the dirt. When they dug deeper, they uncovered a small wooden box wrapped in rotted cloth. Inside were letters written by Thomas Marshall to someone named M. At first, the letters seemed ordinary. But they grew darker. Thomas wrote about his useless wife, about how the girl won't stop crying, and how he can't keep lying about what happened. The final letter was dated August 1975. "Once this is done, we'll finally be free. You'll see." It was never sent. The handwriting matched Thomas's. Investigators believed M wasn't Evelyn, it was a lover. A search of the lumber yard's archived employment logs confirmed it. Thomas had worked alongside a woman named Marjorie Kane, who'd abruptly quit in 1974. When police tracked down her surviving family, they learned Marjorie had died in 1992, but she'd once told relatives she'd been involved with a married man and had run away with him. She never said his name. That's when the theory formed Thomas killed Evelyn, hid her body in the basement, and fled with Marjorie and Grace. But where had they gone? In 2023, a local historian found census records from a Missouri town listing a Thomas Carter, living with a woman named Margaret and a daughter named Grace. The dates matched perfectly. The family lived there from 1976 to 1983, then moved again. Further research showed Thomas Carter died in a car accident in 1987. Margaret Carter, likely Marjorie under an alias, died a few years later in the early 1990s. But Grace was still alive. Now 60, living under a married name in Nebraska. When investigators found her, she was wary but gentle, almost fragile. She said she always knew something was wrong about her childhood, that her father told her mother had died of an illness, and they never stayed in one place for long. Her earliest memory, she said, was of a storm, a woman screaming, and her father carrying her out of a dark room. She never saw her mother again. When police told her about the house, about what they'd found, she broke down. She said she'd dreamed of that place her whole life, a smell she couldn't place, a locked door, a voice crying from below. DNA testing confirmed it beyond any doubt. Grace Carter was Grace Marshall. The remains were her mother's. The case was ruled a historical homicide. But what truly happened that night, whether Thomas acted in rage or desperation, died with him. Today, the house still stands. The county boarded it up and posted warnings, but people still go there, ghost hunters, thrill seekers, kids. Daring each other. They say if you walk around back, you can hear faint music drifting up from beneath the floorboards. And sometimes a woman crying. Maybe it's just the wind slipping through the cracks of old wood. Or maybe some memories don't fade. Even now, nearly 50 years later, that house still holds the silence of everything that happened inside it, and maybe it always will.